everybody, and welcome back to the stream. It's Friday, and you know what that means. It's time for functional home fitness, where we do weight training using crap that you can find around your house. My pile of crap is back there. Eventually I'll put a picture up or something, but I had fancy slideshow thing for my starting soon. I finally was like, Canva is free and easy enough to use, and this feels like a really obvious thing to be able to put together. So hopefully that slideshow worked and was actually I'll go back and look at the playback later, but I spent a fair bit of time in Streamlabs just being like, there's got to be a way to do this. All right, this seems to be the way to do this. So yes, look at me. I'm pulling together a slightly more professional look for this channel. Hello! Hi everybody. Good to be back. It's Friday. Thank goodness. Time has no meaning, but there is a holiday on Monday apparently, which I had completely not really thought about. It's been a while since federal holidays actually meant that I wasn't working. It's been a few years. So, somebody was like, oh yeah, it's Labor Day. And I was like, oh, cool. That's, yeah, awesome. So hopefully many of you have a 3-day weekend coming up, which would be lovely. Get to take some time to relax. Hey, good to see you, virtually anyway. I know that I would like to do that. I've definitely been, going through one of those cycle-y places in the brain where it goes from excitement and enthusiasm for all of the things that I'm working on to a little bit of terror about all of the things that I'm working on. And that is definitely something I've been dealing with. Thank you, my love. I always appreciate having you here for Mod Duty. Hope you're having a good dinner. Dinner is important. Everybody should have dinner after this class. Hey. But I got done those little slideshows, and that felt productive. That felt like a good thing to get done. So, feeling good. Feeling good. All right. Strong. We're just going to flex, make ourselves feel proud of all of the weightlifting we are about to do. So, if this is your first time here at Functional Home Fitness, we do sort of standard free weight exercises, but using, stuff that we can find around the house, like laundry detergent bottles, like backpacks and tote bags that you can then additionally load with books. We use books, and stuff like that. I've done a class with a stock pot filled with stuff, so my standard caveat going into this class is twofold. One, we are doing weight training not with equipment that is designed for that activity. So the nice thing about using dumbbells and kettlebells is that they have the amount of weight nicely written on them, so you understand exactly how much you are loading for any given exercise. We don't have that option here. So if this is your first time taking class and you're not really certain of the amount of weight, then please be a little more cautious and conservative on the first sets. And if you do a set and you're like, oh, I could definitely load this a bit more, then that's awesome. But because we're not using things that have their weights easily available, we don't want to be accidentally overloading ourselves just because we didn't realize how much we were putting in the bag. So that's caveat number one. Caveat number two is, as for any free weight workout, when you are figuring out how much to load, Always pitch the amount of weight to what your weaker side is able to do safely and correctly, okay? So if we're doing dumbbell presses, where you have a weight in each hand, don't put the amount of weight that your stronger side can manage in your weaker side, because your weaker side is going to try and do that exercise, but it is going to be compensating frequently unhealthily. And best case scenario, you're training your body in incorrect form habits, which is never a good thing. You know how much I talk about form. Worst case scenario, you set yourself up for an injury because your weaker side is trying desperately to compensate, but it is not ready for that load yet. So whenever you're doing free weight exercises, whether it's here in this class or with actual dumbbells and kettlebells, always make sure that you are pitching the weight towards your weaker side. Be honest with yourself, okay? I totally understand, the desire to feel like you're, really moving forward with your goals and feeling really badass, but let me tell you, trying to push my weaker side forward so that it met up with my stronger side is exactly how I ended up with a shoulder injury that got in the way of my fitness for a good long while. So, listen to your body, listen to its signals, listen to what it's telling you, be honest with yourself, okay? Okay. I know I had it on the screen before, so I may stop doing this segment, but for old time's sake, and because this is still new, pre-class checklist. So water bottle or something what holds water. Will she ever wash her water bottle? Who knows? At this point, the jury's out. But I will always have my pint glass of water. Make sure you are wearing your comfy clothes, whatever those are. If they are fancy moisture wicking technology spandex, cool. If they're a cotton t-shirt and shorts, cool. Whatever you feel comfortable moving in. Make sure you've got your mat set up, or a mat-sized area of space that you can move around in and exercise in. And if you're using fitness wearable, we're going to turn them on now. We don't use high-intensity interval training on our strength training days. So if you have a strength training setting, that's generally going to be more appropriate, because we're not going to be getting our heart rates up in the same way that we do with our HIIT classes. So we've got all that. We've got our equipment set up. It's time to work out. Oh my goodness. All right, my loves. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start, said the musical theater nerd. We start with our 16-minute warm-up. You know my drill at this point. So everybody, on your mats, on your backs, 1 foot crossed over the opposite knee. We're going to start with those hip rocks and bridges. As soon as you hear the timer go, hopefully it won't blast your eardrums out. Hey! All right, here we go. Yeah, I've been thinking about this class a lot, and, as I've said, weight training is still a newer facet of my own fitness journey, because most of my exercise activities throughout my life have been, dance or running, or, various things that are more body weight focused. But I was reading an article online the other day about how insanely overpriced and hard to get dumbbells and kettlebells are right now. And Amanda knows what I'm talking about. All right, switch feet. And just sort of looking at it, and the article obviously was sort of looking at it in the perspective of people who've lost their gym spaces and want to still be able to work out at home, and I understand that. And we develop preferences for our equipment, Absolutely. And it is really, really hard when those routines are interrupted. I think we've all had experience with that over the last few months. But at one point in the article, they had, it was almost a throwaway sentence, about like, of course you could be doing this with like other stuff around your house. And it was just so dismissive. All right, we're rolling onto our sides. We're doing our best, Jane Fonda. And I was like, who is that helping? Like, not everybody has several $100s to drop on a home set of dumbbells and kettlebells. I know I don't, but what I do have are bags that can be filled with books and laundry detergent bottles that are really freaking heavy. And, I'm likely not going to be able to load myself to the degree that I could in a gym or without that kind of equipment. Like, yeah, sure. But the article also seemed to imply that there was only so fit. All right, top foot in front of the bottom knee, lifting that bottom leg. There was only so fit that you could get, doing body weight exercises or stuff around the house, and we know that's not true. So it was a frustrating piece because on the one hand, it was talking about a really interesting, supply and demand bottleneck, and we've seen this with a lot of different exercise activities, in terms of their equipment becoming ridiculously hard to find and ridiculously overpriced during quarantine, during the pandemic. The same thing is happening in the bike industry, where bikes are just impossible to find right now, and people are selling bikes that they bought 10 years ago for the equivalent of what their retail price was back then, which is obviously more money now. And where was I going with this? It just, there was an interesting point to be made with the piece, but I was so frustrated that it felt the need to take this detour into slamming body weight exercises and slamming, this kind of weight training, because it gives this false impression that they're not worthwhile, or that they're only going to be able to take you so far, and that in turn gives the impression that we're all supposed to have exactly the same goals for fitness, which is bullshit, and that those goals are only achievable with, in a gym or with super expensive gym equipment. And none of that is true, and it's one of those things where I wanted to just like sit them down in front of this stream and be like, look, we are getting a solid workout 4 days a week using nothing but a mat and ourselves and, maybe a backpack and a laundry detergent bottle. And that's all we need, So, yeah, it was just, I feel like there's a lot of that sort of snobbishness in the fitness industry as a whole, and it's something that makes it really hard for me to relate to other professionals in the industry, because I feel like so many people are so focused on, gotta get that machine workout and gotta get those gains. And I mean, anybody who's been in class with me for more than a minute knows that is not my style. But it also is just, it's an approach that makes fitness feel like this insurmountable thing, you know, like this huge barrier, because there are people out there who, you know, maybe they don't want to be doing weight training, maybe they don't want to be doing, you know, going into a gym, and you know, they need resources just the same as the people in the gym do, and they need people who are going to appreciate that not everybody who exercises is doing it so that they can look like, you know, a pro wrestler. Usually I would say Dwayne The Rock Johnson there, but right now I'm just sending him and his family healing vibes. What a weird time we live in, my friends. But anyway, I'm always happy that you all are joining me on this ridiculous journey, using Twitch and our living rooms and our spirit to, you know, keep ourselves healthy, help ourselves get fit, and, you know, help ourselves to just maintain our physical and mental health during an incredibly stressful and unpredictable time. So, in short, no, you do not need to order yourself a set of hundreds of dollars worth of kettlebells and dumbbells for your home workout. If you want to, go for it. It's awesome equipment. It's real helpful, you know? It's useful equipment. And, like, I would absolutely never argue against it if you have the financial resources and you have the desire to use that equipment, you know, if that's the type of equipment that you feel comfortable with, then yeah, rock on, go for it. But if you don't have the desire to use that equipment, or you really are not in a place financially where you can drop that kind of money on weights, then always remember that you can still get an awesome workout without any of that. All right? And then come join us here in class, because that will help to keep reminding you of that fact every dang day. Oh man, we are already to the standing portion of the warm-up. How did we get here? I've been rattling on about weights. Oh my goodness. I will be finishing up a bunch of CEU requirements over the next couple of months, which is going to be fun and stressful, but important stuff. And oh man, yeah, lots of interesting stuff coming down the pipeline. I'm excited. I hope you are too. All right, we are now doing our squats, still holding our imaginary PVC pipe. If you are new to class, that's why my arms are up over my head like that, because I am holding an imaginary PVC pipe above my head. Make sure as you're squatting that your knees are going straight over your feet, not caving in towards one another. If you can't do the squat without your knees caving in towards each other, narrow your stance and practice here until you get to a place where you feel comfortable trying to bring them back out again. All right? So always check in on your form. Form is the starting place for everything that we do here. And, you know, I hammer that into the ground over and over again. And, you know, it's important. And here's the thing. I talk about it all the time. And I'm still working with my brain and my body to really focus in on my form. I still get into those ruts where I'm like, hang on, am I actually paying attention? Is everything actually still in the position it's supposed to be in? You know, it's not a one and done process. It's something that we have to continually be reinforcing for ourselves. But it's important to do that because that also teaches us to take a step back and just look at our foundations. And, you know, in a culture that really tries to emphasize the hustle and grind of it all, it's really important to remind ourselves to just take a step back and take a look at where we're starting from and make sure that it's a sturdy foundation, that it's a safe foundation, that it's serving us well, okay? So, you know, we can do that in a very real, tangible way with our exercise practice. And then we can do that with the rest of our lives too. Just taking that step back and going, all right, let me actually actively, deliberately look at my foundations right now. Look at where I'm starting from and, you know, make sure that everything is serving what I want to be doing, how I want to be feeling, how I want to be interacting with the world. Man, we're getting really life coachy, and I say all of this with the automatic caveat that it is rarely that easy. It's one of those things that sounds really great as an inspirational poster or meme, and then you try to actually do that work and, you know, really engage in that examination, and you realize, holy crap, this is hard and intense, and, you know, the really pretty sunrise on a mountaintop picture didn't really prepare me for how hard that was going to be. So, you know, always recognizing that it's hard and intense, and, you know, it's important to recognize that, because if we go into processes like that, assuming that they should be easy, and then they're not easy, then we get discouraged, you know? Then we start to think there's something wrong with us, that we're not able to do this thing that feels super easy or seems like it is super easy for everybody else. And then we stop trying to do it. And that is never my goal, you know? I want to always acknowledge and honor the fact that this kind of work is hard and it's intense. It's never a straight line, and some days you're gonna feel on top of the world, and some days you're gonna feel like no matter what you do, you can't get over this hill that you're at the bottom of. And, you know, we're not good at acknowledging those days of struggle. So I do want to always be as good as I can be at acknowledging the struggle. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And it doesn't mean we can't do it. Definitely. But it's better to acknowledge that it will not be a straightforward process so that we can remove some of the roadblocks of, well, this should have been easier and it's not, so I'm just going to stop or not try. All right, my friends. Yeah. Gains! Look at these gains, okay? I'm just, articles like that just crack me up because I am so much fitter than I was at the beginning of quarantine, and it is entirely thanks to body weight exercises, and the people out there being like, yeah, you can't make the improvements if you don't have the weights. I'm like, I mean, you're wrong. And I'd like to introduce you to a lot of professional dancers if you really think that, but whatever. The authors of that article will never see this stream, so hey. Okay, my friends. So we are doing our standard weight training sequence. So the timer is going to be going. We will have 2-minute intervals. We will have a set number of reps that I want you to shoot for. The range today is 20 to 35. Okay, so I want you to do 20 to 35 reps of each exercise. So plan the amount of weight that you're using accordingly. And then you do all your reps in a row. And then once you're done with them, you use the rest of the timer as a rest period. So rest, grab some water, chill. Then you'll hear knock, 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 which tells you to get into position for the next exercise. We will be doing 4 exercises and just going through 3 times each. And then we'll have something at the end of class. Ooh. So our 4 exercises for today. First one is going to be upright rows. So if I was doing this with dumbbells, I would be using 2 dumbbells and holding them, palms facing in towards my body, pulling them up to my chest, and then bringing them down, maintaining control over the weight at all points. You can also go for, say, if you have a top-handled laundry detergent bottle, you can do that as well. And that's probably what I'm going to do today. Just be aware that, depending on bottle shape, and because there is a viscous, fluid inside that's moving around, just sort of check in on where the weight seems more intense. Like with that bottle, I'll probably flip it around each time so that I even out my arms. But yeah, so first exercise is going to be upright rows. Second exercise is going to be sumo squats. So again, if I was doing this in the gym, I'd be using dumbbells, and I would take that nice wide position. We took this position in the warm-up, holding the dumbbells in front of me. My palms are facing towards each other, and we're just going to squat down. Make sure those knees are staying nicely over the feet, and make sure that you're not letting the weight drag you down. So core engaged, and up, down, and up, down, and up. Okay? Again, if you want to, depending on what equipment you have available, you can hold a single heavier weight in between. So that is acceptable. Third is going to be lateral raises. So because this is a shoulder exercise, we want to be lighter on the amount of weight that we use. So I'm actually going to stick with the books for this one. All right, so taking a nice solid stance, core engaged, glutes engaged, so everything, my torso and my legs, nice and stable, and we're just lifting our arms up till they're about parallel with the ground, and down, and up, and down, and up, and down, like that, okay? And then fourth exercise is going to be split squats. So every time we come, nope, it's going to be goblet squats, or goblet front lunges, because I did not think about the fact that we're only going through this 3 times. Yay, math. All right, so you're going to hold one heavy weight just held right here in front of your chest, and then step forward to a nice lunge, push back, step forward with the other foot, and push back, okay? So those are our 4 exercises. Grab my water glass so that I'm not constantly trying to put myself over by the laptop for this. So yeah, those are our 4 exercises: upright rows, sumo squats, lateral raises, and goblet front lunges. So as soon as you hear the starting timer, we will be off and away with our upright rows. So everybody prep, and here we go. So you don't need your elbows to go any higher than shoulder length, and I'm keeping them about parallel with the ground as well, okay? So keep that in mind, and when you're letting the weight come down, you need to maintain control over that weight the whole time, okay? So you're not letting gravity take over and just pull the weight down, okay? Because that is how we hurt ourselves. So pulling the weight up and letting it slowly down, very important to maintain that control, okay? And remember, 20 to 35 reps. So hopefully you're counting. One of the most important skills that I learned when I was taking this class was how to keep counting when the teacher was still talking at me. And since you're here on a Twitch stream, which means that I'm basically talking at you the whole damn time, it's an important skill to know. So make sure that you are keeping track of your number. Make sure that you are not going above the upper limit, okay? So you get to 35 and you stop. If you're there like, I totally could have kept going, well, then next time, add a little weight on, okay? That's why bags are really great for this work, because bags can be loaded with books and other objects, and so they aren't just one weight. But now, here we are with our sumo squats. I'm using the one object that is heavier rather than the 2 books. But remember that if I was in the gym doing this with dumbbells, I would be doing it with 2 dumbbells. So if that is what you want to do, that's totally fine. Again, with this weight, you want to make sure your shoulders are engaged, okay? You don't want the weight to just be dangling and pulling down, okay? So make sure, I'm going to show you with something lighter. It's the difference between here I am and I'm holding this thing versus, oh, my arm is dragging down, okay? So keep that in mind, because that becomes really tricky, all right? So you always want to be aware of your shoulder engagement, particularly when we are using big, heavy weights like that, and they are trying to pull us in a direction with the assistance of gravity, okay? We don't want to let that happen. And we don't want to stiffen up, but you want strength and stability in the shoulder, okay? And we don't think about that a lot for our shoulders because they are supposed to be a really flexible joint. But the more that you can do to strengthen up your shoulders, to increase their stamina, let me tell you, it's a revelation when you go back to a lot of other exercises, and you just discover how much your lack of shoulder strength and stamina was impacting your ability to do those exercises. So as we do these lateral raises, just enjoy the fact that you are strengthening your shoulders, okay? Hey, and again, we don't want to load them super heavily, okay? So that's why I'm using these books rather than trying to find a heavier equivalent. We can, believe me, we're doing more than enough for them right now, okay? So make sure that you have a nice stable base, glutes engaged, core engaged. So again, the only things moving are your arms as you're lifting and lowering, okay? So it's a single joint exercise. The only joint that's doing anything are the shoulders, not bending at the elbows, not hinging at the pelvis, not squatting or anything like that, okay? So you really want to make sure that everything else is nice and stable and sturdy so that trying to lift your arms doesn't then pull you in a weird direction that you weren't expecting to go, okay? Important things to think about, my friends, and believe me, I hammer home on them all the time. So good things to keep in mind. All right, here we go into our last exercise. As soon as that horn goes, goblet front lunges. You want to make sure, now there's something pokey on my mat, rude. You want to make sure that you are doing an even number of these because you're switching feet, right? So for this, if you actually did get to 35, I would want you to do 36 so that you even out both sides. Now, when you're stepping forward, you want to make sure that you're stepping out far enough. I'm going to put this down for a second. You want to make sure you're stepping out far enough that when you come down into this lunge, you're not pushing that knee super far forward past your toes, okay? So that will probably mean that you have to step forward a lot farther than your brain thinks that you should. But if I'm only stepping to here and then trying to do this lunge, there's basically no way for me to do it without my knee pushing forward in a really unhealthy way, all right? So pay attention to that. Pay attention to keeping your hips nice and straight forward so we're not opening out our pelvis in any way. We're just going straight forward and back, okay? And again, having that core engaged really helps to make sure that no parts of your weight are going in a direction you're not expecting them to go, okay? Oh, that's why the AC's not coming through. Ow. The glamours of being a fitness instructor as I have to leap up in the air and try and open the vent for my AC. Oh, that's much better. There we go. Yeah, those of you who've taken class with me for a while know that my AC is such that if the vent is open in the bedroom, then if the vent is open in both the bedroom and the living room, the AC is not effective in either location. So usually, if I'm in the living room, I'll try and make sure that the vent in the bedroom is closed and vice versa. But sometimes you don't think about that. Sometimes you're just like, hey, it's class time. And then head off into the wild blue yonder and then go, why is it so stuffy in here? I have the AC on. Oh, dang it. Well, thankfully, Colorado is barreling towards fall, which in Colorado is really just winter. Swinter. Like basically we have 4 seasons. We have winter and summer, and then we have winter and swinter. So anything that is not actively summer or actively winter goes back and forth between being super hot and filled with snow. So, our expectation over the next week is that we'll have several more like 90 something degree days, and then next week Tuesday it's supposed to snow. Which is just thrilling. I mean, I laugh about it. I do love the weirdness of Colorado's weather, and the fact that it's so dry here does definitely help to lessen the load of the crazy weather. Because there are places all over the country where people are like, oh hey, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes. And I've lived in a lot of those places, and it is very true. But humidity makes a difference, because I lived 10 years or so in the Northeast, and it's always humid there, which means that even when you're in the sun, if it's cold out, you're still probably super friggin' cold. And even in the summer, in the shade, if it's hot out, you're still super freaking hot because you're surrounded by water everywhere. Whereas in Colorado, if it's 96 degrees out, but I am in shade, under a tree, under a tent, I am super comfy. And then the second that you step out of that shading is when you go, ooh, that's that Daystar heat that I was trying to avoid. So, yay Colorado. And honestly, I'm really excited to get to wear pants again. So I am very much looking forward to a snow day where I can maybe switch up my wardrobe a little bit, because I don't really have a particularly extensive summer wardrobe, so I've really been wearing the same like 3 articles of clothing for several months now. And part of it is I should probably actually make my wardrobe something that better reflects my current tastes and enjoyments in clothing, because a lot of that stuff is stuff that I've owned for the better part of a decade. But part of it is also just I enjoy fall clothing and winter clothing so much more. than summer clothing. So, woo! If you live in Colorado, get prepped for snow. And if you don't live in Colorado, feel free to laugh at me when I post on social media about how cold it is. I'm supposed to bike. Oh God, we'll see if I bike commute next week Tuesday. That'll be an interesting question. Will she or won't she? How dedicated is she? I don't have a fat tire bike, so biking in the snow, not necessarily the greatest proposition with my gravel bike, but we will see, friends. All right, coming back around to our second run of goblet front lunges. All right, here we go. So check in on that form. When you come down into that double bent leg lunge, where's the front knee? Your back knee, it can tap the ground, but you're not like coming down into a kneeling position. You're not here proposing to someone, okay? So it can tap the floor, but no more than that, because you want to be coming right back up to standing and switching legs. You're not coming down into this lunge and hanging out in that position, okay? And remember, for this one, the weight is really to give us some extra external force to push against as we push ourselves back up to the standing position. So that tends to be how free weight leg exercises operate. So we can load ourselves more heavily because we're not trying to move the weight around on its own. You're just trying to hold and maintain that hold on the bag. So I could load that up probably with several more books and be totally fine because my legs have the strength to be able to push through that force, okay? So keep that in mind. I'm not generally up here switching around the amount of weight that I'm using just because I'm trying to concentrate on instruction. There's only so many things that I can turn my head to right now. But if you're doing the goblet front lunges and going, I'm not really feeling the benefit of them right now, then probably what you need to do is load that bag a little bit more, okay? So that's why things like, oh, that was a knock, knock, knock that I didn't hear. So, hey, we are doing our upright rows. Sorry, my friends. Thankfully, for this work, and I said this last week, but it is still true this week. You know, whereas our Tabata focused classes, I put a lot of emphasis on the starting on time because you have a much smaller work interval and you don't want to lose precious time off of that work interval. Here, because you have a full 2 minutes and you get that the end of the timer is supposed to be rest. If you're not starting exactly on the horn, it's not the worst thing in the world because even if you're doing the max number of reps, you should still have plenty of time at the end of those reps to rest. Okay, so this is the one day where I give you leave to be a little less intense on the starting on time portion of our bare minimum trilogy. Okay, the one day of the week. It's Friday. You know, we're all in various states of frustration, anger, stress, despondency. We are here to work out, but we're also here to remind ourselves that this is a nice gateway into what is hopefully a 3-day weekend for many of you. All right, there was the knocking. I liked that. All right, sumo squats. Wandering around like a chicken with my head cut off because I couldn't remember what the exercise was. All right, here we go. Last time for those sumo squats, make sure your core is engaged. so that when you squat down, you don't want to squat down and then have the weight pull you down towards the floor, okay? So that's why engaging the core is going to help strengthen and support the back muscles, all right? And check in on your shoulders. Make sure they're engaged so that you're not, again, the difference between this and this. You see how the weight is really pulling down on my shoulder. All I have to do is just engage the muscles. I'm not over engaging, like pulling it up to my ear, just engaging them, activating them, and they're like, no, you're not going anywhere, okay? So keep that in mind. I know I talk a lot about shoulders, but let me tell you, you don't appreciate good shoulder health until you don't have it anymore, okay? So for those of you with good shoulder health, I want you to be able to maintain that. And for those of us who may have chronic issues, I understand it can get better in many instances. Obviously, there are chronic conditions that will cause impacts no matter how much physical therapy or exercise you do. And I never want to minimize that because I have very dear friends with some of those conditions, like EDS, for example, hypermobility, that kind of thing. But even in those instances, I believe that that modest physical therapy exercises and modest weight training can be a benefit, obviously with your doctor's feedback. But for those of us who don't necessarily have those types of chronic conditions, but do have an injury that we are still dealing with, shoulder strengthening exercises, again, I said it earlier, game changer for me. Because I never realized how little focus I had put on my shoulder strength and stamina until I had been doing my physical therapy exercises for a few months, and then went back to class and suddenly was like, holy crap, mountain climbers feel so much easier now. Kick-throughs feel so much easier now. What is this madness? I suddenly have the strength and stamina. I suddenly understand what my shoulders are supposed to feel like doing those exercises, you know? So, woo shoulder strength, woo shoulder stability, woo shoulder health. And yeah, it's intense. Let me tell you, you do not want to, I'm thankfully on the lower end of the spectrum of shoulder issues where, you know, chiropractic adjustments and physical therapy exercises, you know, I still have chronic pain from it, but they have definitely improved my overall situation. I have not one but two friends who have had to have shoulder surgery this year. So it's always very high in my mind. But the good news is, my friends, we have come to the very last interval. Last time for goblet front lunges. Grab your heavy bag. Make sure you've got that weight under control. Make sure your core is engaged as you are doing these lunges. Make sure you're taking a second to check in on your knees, okay? Is this knee going super far forward? Is it sort of right on the edge but probably still okay? Or are you going, ooh, yeah, that feels like a nice 90-degree angle. We love those 90-degree angles, my friends. Love them, love them, love them. All right, and make sure, again, you don't want this bag, this weight going anywhere. This weight is just, whoo, almost lost my balance there. This weight is just staying in that one position, okay? So you really want to make sure that you have it under control, okay? And again, core will help engaging those core muscles will help stabilize the back muscles, and together they will form a glorious, stable torso for you to move back and forth out of these lunges. Oh, I'm going to grab some water because guess what? Most, if not all of you, are done with your reps. So we're just going to let this timer play out, and then I will tell you how we are ending class. But I'm going to come back over here and hang out with you while this finishes up. Oh man, knock, knock, knock. It doesn't really mean anything right now. T-shirt dresses, ooh. That sounds cute. I did mean New England. I did. Oh, good job, everybody. I did, in fact, mean New England. Poor New England. Look, I love New England. I don't know that I would ever live there again, but I do love it. But, man, the first time I went back to New England after moving to Colorado, I realized just how awful the humidity was in a way that I never did when I lived there. It was so normalized for me when I lived there that I just never thought about it. And then I went back in April, which would have been like 5 months after I had moved. And it was cold, but also the air was wet, so it was even colder. And I was like clammy all the time. And I was like, oh, so this is awful. All right, my loves, excellent job. We are going to do one more thing, and it's going to be 10 minutes, and it's going to be toe squats. I know, we're ending with toe squats. We're not ending with just that, but I wanted to throw something a little bit different in there. And, you know, toe squats are never a bad way to end class. So, if you are new to class, then here's what a toe squat is. So we're going to take our feet in about hip width apart position, and then I'm going to show you from the side because it's not a normal squat. So we're going to be trying to keep our torso as straight up and down as we can throughout this movement. So I'm going to start squatting down, but keeping my torso like this, my pelvis directly under me, I can't really get very far before, you know, my Achilles go, well, that's as far as we're going, mate. So when I hit that point, I just let my heels come off the ground, and I come all the way down here, let my arms come up as I get down to the bottom of this position, and then I just stand back up, my heels come naturally back down to the ground, and then we do it again, okay? So we're gonna do 10 minutes of this. You can take rests, but I do want you to do the same number of reps between each rest, okay? So if you start out and you do 20 reps, and then you're like, all right, I need a rest, cool. You are now doing 20 reps each time. If you start out and you do 50 reps before you take a rest, awesome. You're now doing 50 reps each time, all right? So again, a good time to be honest with ourselves about where we are, and honest with ourselves about whether we've been challenging ourselves enough, because that's the other thing, is part of the reason we get into these ruts is because we're like, our brain sort of hooks onto these negative concepts about our performance, and then we just stop trying to see if we can push any harder. So if you have not tested doing a bigger number of reps yet, test it out today. All right, see if you can, my challenge to you, see if you can add on 5 to 10 more reps than you did the last time we did this, okay? All right, so we're gonna turn on that 10-minute timer. There's only gonna be one horn in the middle. That's just the horn that says, hey, we're halfway through this, so fear not. But as soon as you hear that timer go, we will be doing our toe squats. And that is how we are going to come through the rest of class. So one thing to think about with these, they are another exercise where gravity likes to give us a helping hand. We do not want to let it. So I don't want to be sort of collapsing down into this position and bouncing up and down, you can tell when you've collapsed into this position because you get this little bounce down here, and it's not good for your knees. So part of how we deal with that and work against it is by making sure we've engaged our stabilizing muscle groups. So I talk about the core all the time. I love it. It is an important stabilizing muscle group. So I engage the core. That means that I have all of the weight of my torso under control. So it's not going to go in a weird direction that I don't expect it to. Because the other thing is, when we're getting down to this position, we're up on the balls of our feet. We don't have a ton of real estate that we're balancing on, okay? And if my torso is just sort of free range, then woo, you know, best case, I fall over. Worst case, I fall over and injure myself. So make sure that you are, even when you're doing really quick reps, because you can do this really quickly and still maintain that control, okay? When you are taking a rest, and do take advantage of that. I mean, unless you're deliberately trying to see if you can keep going for the entire 10 minutes, I applaud you if that's the case. But if you are taking a rest, my recommendations for stretches, obviously stretching the quads is a big one. So the standing quad stretch, just so you're not getting up and down off the ground. So we grab our foot and pull that heel up into our butt and just tighten that grip until you feel that stretch along your quad, okay? And then you can let that come back down. I'm gonna even myself out because it's important to even ourselves out. Another thing to stretch out, your calves. So easiest to do this up against a wall because you can use pressure against the wall to increase the force of the stretch. So imagine I have a wall in front of me. I'm just going to extend one leg behind me, and I want that heel to be able to get flat down on the floor, okay? Keeping my pelvis pointing forward. If I'm not able to do this just under my own power, that's why the wall can be really nice. I push against the wall, and it helps me to push that heel down and feel that nice stretch. I'm keeping this leg as straight as I can. Feel that nice stretch in the calf, and then try and even it out on the other side. So stretching out your calves. And then our feet. So if you are new to toe squats, you will likely feel cramping in your feet. I know I did for ages. And it will generally be sort of in your arches, okay? So when you're taking your rest, just flip over your toes like this. So you're coming up into this position for this toe squat over and over again. So we just want to move the toes in the other direction, sort of stretch out in the other direction. You'll feel that stretch up along the top of your foot and going up into your shin. And it'll just help to balance out the stress on your toes. One of the most exciting points of, ooh, I'm getting better at these, is when your feet no longer cramp every time you do them. Always an exciting thing to be able to say. It took me better part of a year to get to that point though. So if you've been with me for the last 6 months, and you're like, oh man, my toes or my arches still cramp when I do that, don't worry, it may take a while, but you'll get there, okay? That's the thing. We live in an era where we are all about instant gratification. I'm not saying anything revolutionary, but you know, a lot of times, hey, that's that halfway horn, just 5 more minutes left on this timer. I'm not saying anything revolutionary, obviously, but one of the ways in which that impacts us is it makes us harsher with ourselves in judging ourselves when we do not move forward towards our goals as quickly as we believe that we should be able to. And, you know, you see that a lot in the fitness world. A lot. So I always want to encourage you to take a step back from that mindset. Because even when you don't feel like you're seeing any external signs of improvement, the improvements are happening. There's a ton of stuff that happens inside the body at the cellular level, at the muscular level, stuff that we're not consciously aware of, but that is happening. And it will eventually start manifesting itself externally in ways that you can feel. But, you know, just because you can't consciously feel that improvements are happening doesn't mean that they're not happening, okay? And it really is annoying and also kind of wonderful the way that sometimes it just feels like a light goes off. You know, you come back to the mat for a class you've done over and over again, and you go, I don't feel like I'm doing anything different, but holy crap, suddenly this feels easier, or that feels easier. Like, it's weird and it's wild. It can be very frustrating to those of us who would prefer more obvious manifestations of success, but it's a good reminder that we aren't always aware of how we're growing and how we're improving, you know? And that's why it's good to sometimes take that step back, both to look at our form, at where we're starting from, and to take that step back and go, what am I missing? What am I not allowing myself to notice about ways that I have improved, or that I do feel more centered or closer to this goal I'm trying to achieve, or more settled in my brain, in my relationships? You know, taking that step back can be really helpful, and it's easy for us to forget that. So start by just training yourself to take that step back when you're working out and go, okay, I can definitely feel that this feels a little easier in this way, although I still think that I am struggling with it in this other way, you know, but I have an improvement over here, and that's awesome. That is really good, you know? So always celebrate the improvements, even if they feel tiny, even if you're not all the way to the goal you want to be at yet, you know, still celebrate the improvements, because being willing to celebrate yourself makes it more likely that you will want to continue doing this work, okay? And that goes for everything, not just exercise, but man, our brains are so good at beating us up over and over again, and you know, believe me, I understand. And it's not always as easy as take a step back and look, but you know, listen to the words, and when you are able to, try and take that step back and look. All right, we have just 30 seconds left on this timer, my friends, so wherever you are, I want you to try and keep going to the very end of the timer, okay? So make sure that your core is still engaged. You're checking in on that form, making sure that you're not letting gravity take control. 5 seconds left. You've got this. You've totally got this. We're almost there. Hey! Woohoo! Oh, man. Awesome. Awesome. Awesome, my friends. Since we ended with the toe squats, and you were able to take little stretch breaks in there, I think we will end class like this today. Hey, is your water still halfway full? Shame on you, teacher. I promise to finish it. Oh, thank you all so much for being here. What a lovely, lovely class. That felt really fun. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're, able to heft that laundry detergent bottle a little more easily. I'm definitely getting to this place where I'm seriously considering like having a suite of multiple detergent bottles, since they are so easy to use for a plethora of different exercises, and just being like, every time I have to open one for its actual intended purpose of doing laundry, like, go out and get another one, so I still have two for functional home fitness. I don't know, it seems a little silly, but who knows. Is it as silly as paying $600 for a set of kettlebells right now? Jury's still out. Oh, we have only one more class left in this week's schedule, and that is the weekend kickoff tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. So I hope some of you will join me for that awesome strength and stamina focused bodyweight class. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The various handles will actually be up in the closing slideshow, so I won't spell them out in the way that I usually do. All of the VODs from these streams are uploaded to my YouTube channel, Blanche Case Fitness, so head over there and subscribe. And you can find the VODs for these classes, and also there will be lots of supplemental materials going up there as well, so it will be an excellent resource for people taking class. If you enjoyed yourself and feel financially able to donate to help me keep making these classes, I do have a Ko-Fi account. Donations always appreciated, never required. And if you want to help build this community, see more content, all of that exciting stuff, all of these exciting plans that I have, then do please follow this channel. And keep coming to streams, because I love it. I love having y'all here, having you in the chat, just having a lot of fun. And Eductor has followed. Thank you so much. Speaking of new follows, so yes. Thank you all so much for being here. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see some of you tomorrow morning. Mwah. Have a great night.